Hello and welcome to my Halloween special. And on this video, I'm going to be going through my 10 favourite horror Halloween themed pieces of music, right? So, as you can see, no expense has been spared in bringing you this video today. Well, in fact, all the expenses have been spared, except for from Tesco's a little makeup pack that I went and got, and I've got my torch here. There's my torch. So I'm actually doing the lighting effects as we speak. So I've got a couple of rules with this playlist, right? So I've called it my Halloween playlist, my 10 favourite scary tunes. I nearly forgot the title of this video. I'm not going to include on here any tunes by Black Sabbath. That's too easy. And I've got to be honest, there's so many incredible Black Sabbath tunes. Originally I put the tune Black Sabbath at number 1, and I thought, well, it's just too easy, so I took it out. There's no Black Sabbath tunes, and I am not going to just be pulling from black metal and death metal and goth music. That would be too easy. I've tried to pull from a whole wide range of styles of music, right? There's nothing from Number of the Beast, Iron Maiden either, nothing at all, right? I haven't picked from that. These are all the easy pickings, and of course there's no Thriller by Michael Jackson. That's not on the list. I thought it's so obvious that would just take up too many spaces, and I wouldn't be able to get into some of the more weirder choices that I've got into on here. It's not particularly ranked in any order. I'm going to go sort of 1 to 10. They're just my favourite horror tunes, and also I've tried to really go across the genres with it, so we've got stuff from a lot of different places. So of course, we've got to get them out of the way at number 1. They're always on a list of mine. We've got the Mavish Orchestra. I have to have the Mavish Orchestra list. Remember, you got to remember why we're here. I may look absolutely ridiculous right now, but we've got to remember why we're here, and it is about the music. And I'm hoping, beyond how stupid this all really is, that you'll actually be entertained by some of these choices and some of the areas we get into. So, number 10, we've got the Mavish Orchestra. The Mavish Orchestra, for me, are an incredibly frightening and scary and dark band. I think for all that sort of elevated spirituality that John McLaughlin tries to put across in that band, there's something absolutely terrifying about them. And no more so than on the song Sanctuary off Birds of Fire, which is a dark and menacing, brooding piece of music. If you look down below in the links, you will see I've created a playlist of the songs I'm choosing today. And if you stick that on and listen to it, that will be sort of my instrumental opener to set the dark, menacing, frightening mood for this playlist. I think one of the things with John McLaughlin that's really interesting is, as he progressed, that darkness, which I think is something that we really love about the Mavish Orchestra, just slowly diminishes from his music. You can see it slowly draining away. By the time he gets to the end of the Mavish Orchestra and Shakti, it's almost like there's been a transformation in him. And from that moment on, his music is a complete opposite. It's very light. It's very airy, and that darkness seems to go as though something in McLaughlin went. I've spoken to many Mavish Orchestra fans about this, and they all feel the same way. You know that there's something that goes later on, but on Sanctuary, it's there in full blast, slow, menacing, dark, and frightening. It's got perhaps the most scariest Moog solo by Jan Hammer, absolutely incredible, where he just really rips the emotions. That's what I've got on that. Is at number 1. We have Sanctuary by the Mavish Orchestra. The next track up is Get Out of My House by Kate Bush. So many people who watch this channel love Kate Bush. I absolutely love Kate Bush. There's a number of tunes that we could have picked for this list. I nearly went for Hammer Horror, but on Get Out of My House, which is off the Dreaming album, Kate not only goes into a terrifying space on that track, but absolutely possibly one of the most absurd places, where Kate imagines herself as a poltergeist in a house. She basically turns the scenario around, rather than seeing it from the people who are being haunted point of view, On that song, she sees it from the Haunters, right? And amongst the screams of "Get out of my house" as this ghost tries to evict in sort of Beetlejuice fashion these people from the house, she then starts to emulate the sound of a donkey. And I've always felt this is one of those moments in Kate Bush's catalogues where she is just so further out. For a mainstream artist that has like chart success, you know, sells records, this is like perhaps her most out there moment on any album whatsoever. An absolute incredible moment. There's other tracks. I'm thinking of Waking the Witch off The Hounds of Love. I'm thinking of the... there's a song, very strange song, which I think is called The Infant's Kiss, which is about a child that's possessed by a sort of sexualized evil spirit. That's another strange song. So we really could have done this video probably out of Kate Bush tunes. She really does, you know, go to some dark places. So that's what I got at number 2. All right, and number 3. I felt I needed to represent all that goth stuff, you know. Me being I'm 54, so I was sort of traversing my way into music in the early 1980s. And of course, you had all the kids that were into pop music, you know, Culture Club and all that stuff. And then under the surface, you had all those people that were into Sisters of Mercy and, you know, and all that type of stuff. The Cure. And that was all pretty dark and scary. And I felt I need to represent that on the list. I've always had a love-hate relationship with that genre. It always seems a bit like heavy metal for middle-class kids to me. And I would much have rather rocked out to the frightening sounds of Iron Maiden. But I think in terms of gothic, you know, true gothic rock, and you got to remember that goth rock morphs slowly into what we call emo. It sort of back-ends itself back into metal and rock anyway. Oh, I'm scratching. I can't scratch with all this on my face. I've got makeup on. If you didn't know it, I'm not just having a particularly bad day. Yeah, some of you may not have noticed that I've actually sort of tried to make myself look horrific, or shall we say more horrific. But this sort of thing I've tried to get here. Well, my kids have done this actually, to try and get this sort of cheekbony look. That, of course. Was embodied so great by a gothic band called Bauhaus. And Bauhaus made a song called Bela Lugosi's Dead, which is about as terrifying as you get, you know. I did a little bit of research for this, and I decided to watch that again, and I watched the video for it, but there's some incredible footage of Bauhaus performing Bela Lugosi's Dead on Top of the Pops, which... mainly consists of the lead singer in a similar makeup look as me, sitting in a sort of dark throne, right, on the top of the pop stage, whilst this sort of industrial clanking sort of horror torture chamber sounds go on for about 2 minutes. I think that Bela Lugosi's Dead has got to be on the list of one of the most bizarre tunes to actually get in the charts. Absolutely strange. It's up there with Pig Bag, which is a band that had a number 1 in the 80s, which, you know, was basically almost like disco-free jazz. I always thought that was a strange record as well. And so is Bela Lugosi's Dead, you know. I could do a video, I think, on, you know, bizarre stuff that got in the charts. I think that's actually not a bad idea. And Bela Lugosi's Dead would be on that list as well. I think in the UK we all remember, and I wish I could remember the lead singer of Bauhaus, but as you know, my jazz fusion prog knowledge is okay, but there's no way I'm going to remember that guy. I do know it. It's not there. Peter Murphy, is that the guy? Is it in there? Did I manage to pull that out? The same guy that couldn't remember the keyboardist of Genesis. Right, so is it Peter Murphy? We'll soon find out. You'll tell me in the comments. But he also, there was an advert for cassette tape Maxell that he was in. So they had quite a cultural crossover Bauhaus, but they were pretty out there. So that's what I've got anyway at number 3. Right, now number 4, I'm back more on home territory, because at number 4 I've decided to put One More Red Nightmare by King Crimson. King Crimson also peddlers of the dark, of the satanic, of Beelzebub. I always felt that King Crimson's got aspects of that in their music, right from that opener on the first album, 21st Century Schizoid Man. But what do we pick from? Well, the reason I went for One More Red Nightmare is because I think, you know, Red is one of the great albums they make. Many people think it is the greatest album they make. And of course, it's about a nightmare, you know. So actually in the lyrics, we're referring to horrific stuff. It's also famous for the bizarre cymbal sound that Bill Bruford gets on that track. In 2005, I was playing at a drum festival, and Bill Bruford was at that festival, and I managed to sit down and chat to him for quite a while. And I said, can you please tell me the story of the cymbal on One More Red Nightmare? And he said when they arrived at the studio, there'd been a band in there already. And obviously one of their cymbals had basically collapsed. It hadn't broken as such. It wasn't cracked, I don't think, from what Bill said. It was more, it just collapsed in on itself. And someone had thrown it in the bin. And Bill Bruford, being Bill Bruford, with his exploratory mind and want for new sounds, fishes this out the bin. And he said it looked like a sombrero. Now, there's a really trendy thing going around. If you watch any cool sort of drummer that's playing on that sort of, you know, neo-soul, you know, modern funk approach, I'm thinking of people like Chris Daddy Dave, they now have that curvy, floppy cymbal that looks like a sombrero, you know. So I think whatever Bill discovered there has now become de rigueur for any super cool drummer nowadays. I want to get one. I haven't got one of those cymbals. I'd love to get one, you know. I always used to do it by just finding a couple of old beaten up cymbals and sticking them on top of each other until I got a sound I liked. But yeah, that cymbal sound really, you know, makes that track. Of course, Red has this incredibly heavy, dark sound to it. And I don't know how many people know this, but Red was actually a big influence on Kurt Cobain and the sound of Nirvana. So it's talked about this album so many times on that channel, but that's what I've got at number 4 is King Crimson with One More Red Nightmare. So what have we got next? Number 5. Well, I have been considering making a video where I do my 10 favourite songs of all time. And this is definitely a contender for that. This is possibly the best song on here. It's an absolute cracker. And it's Ghosts by Japan, which is off the album that they made where David Sylvian is eating this sort of Chinese food or Japanese food in a sort of Japanese setting. And I'm stalling for time because I'm trying to remember what that album is called. And I can't, but I'm sure you'll put it in the comments. It's pretty much the last Japan album that came out. Japan sort of emerged as a sort of post-Roxy music, art pop band. But as they move on, they take sort of Eno-esque influences, progressive rock influences, electronica influences. And by the time you get to the last album, you've got quite a virtuoso sort of proggy, avant-garde prog album. You know, I've argued it elsewhere that Japan by this point are a major influence on the sort of prog scene that's going to emerge much later on, really around, you know, bands like Steve Wilson and Porcupine Tree. And I'm trying still, I was hoping I could remember the name of that Japan album. It's not Still Life or something, I can't remember it. Anyway, it's a fantastic album. Now Ghosts is pretty much unlike everything else on that album. The rest of the album is sort of bubbling Eno-esque funk with Mick Karn's incredible bass lines and you know, and Steve Johnson's like ridiculous sort of, you know, sounds almost like programmed drums, very detailed sort of Steve Gadd meets Kraftwerk sound, and there's a definite sound on that album. Ghosts is different, and Ghosts is basically this sort of quiet atmospheric song, which is where they're not playing the normal instruments they play, they're playing synthesizers. I think there's a marimba on there. It's very delicately arranged, and there's so much space in it. It sounds like David Silverwood has written actually a very strong song with acoustic guitar, simple chord progressions, great hooks, and then they've got away with the chord structure, allowing just the melody to breathe, and then brought in all these colours which do have a really, really spooky atmosphere. I do think it's one of the greatest songs ever written, and it's the coming together of a fantastic song and a fantastic musical process. It's out and out prog. It was a huge hit here in the UK. I don't know if it was a hit in America. And again, this is one of those songs that you cannot believe got in the charts back in whenever it was, 1982 or whenever, 81 when it came out. Absolutely incredible song and one of my favourite songs. And I would go ferreting around in the background to find the name of the album that it's on, but of course I can't because all the spiders have got in. Look at this spider there, can you see him? Right, I don't like spiders much, you know, but these are guarding the treasured albums at the moment, alright? So I have to talk a little bit quietly, I don't want to upset them. Never upset the spiders. Right, so what have I got at number 6? At number 6, I have got, and I thought I really need something fusiony on this list because that's what everybody loves. And you know, you try and think of a fusion track which is horrific, without going down the sort of Fusac route. You know, I know there's quite a lot on GRP that is pretty horrific, isn't there? You know, of course, there's the terrified Dave Gruesome, you know, with his awful, you know, 80s TV theme albums. But it's really hard to get a seriously frightening track. And this track's not frightening, it's actually very funny. But, I don't even know whether it's fusion, is it prog? But anyway, I'll get on with it. And number 6, I've got Zombie Woof by Frank Zappa, which is off the album Overnight Sensation. You know, Overnight Sensation is where Frank Zappa decided to go a little bit funky. I think he pulled in George Duke. It's a very funky album, a very jazzy album, very fusiony album. It's like somewhere between the Mavish Nuxtra, Stevie Wonder and Stravinsky. That's what that album sounds like, and it was a big seller for Frank. You know, it's got a whole host of, like, it's got I'm the Slimes on there, Dirty Love's on there, Dynamo Hum's on there. But my favourite track on that album is Zombie Woof, which is the story of a sort of sexual predatory werewolf. You know, the world really needs at least one song about that. There's a cracking guitar solo in there from Frank, which really, really burns. And of course, that album is famous for having the Ikettes with Tina Turner on backing vocals. The story goes, and I will relay it here because it's as good a place to relate as anywhere else, is that Frank was in the studio, next door was Ike Turner and the Ikettes, and he needs some backing vocals, so he said to Ike, can I borrow your backing singers and your singer, which of course is Tina Turner. And Ike turned around and said, yeah, but you can't credit them, and you can't pay them more than $25. Now Frank got around this by, I think, deliberately misinterpreting that command, and he paid them, I think, $25 an hour each. You know, so they got paid. They weren't credited, but since then it's come out that Tina Turner is on that album. So when you listen to Zombie Woof and hear that incredible, you know, I think it's the middle section, that's Tina Turner singing. She of course does, or they do that incredible vocal on Montana, which just shows you the virtuosity of those singers to be able to pull that off. Apparently Tina was so pleased that she'd be able to sing this almost impossible vocal part on Montana that she called Ike Turner in, and he just said, you know, what is this? I think with like swearing and all that. A few years ago, I actually got approached by the drummer of Ike Turner's band when he was still alive, and he was, I think he was a bit of a prog fan, and he asked me to go and meet the band, and in the end I turned it down because of course Ike Turner's reputation went before him. Tried to just get a little bit scary then, using Ike Turner to get scary. You know. So anyway, that's what I got. Number 6 is Zombie Wolf by Frank Zappa. At number 7, some scary prog. Right. At number 7, I have Witch Hunt by Rush. What a tune, right? And I put it on again to listen again, and they really do, you know, cook up a dark, gothy brew at the beginning of that track. Of course, there's always a deeper motive with Rush, because the song is really a metaphor for you know, modern day witch hunts, which I think in today's climate is quite apt. This song has probably got more relevance now than it did then, or perhaps it's always been the case, you know, that there are the powers that be that want to be able to control what people think and what people say, and that's what that song's about. But it tells the story of, you know, a sort of medieval witch hunt, you know. I just love the opening where you sort of have that sort of the bell tolling, and you have almost like a musical box sound. You can hear the crowd, you know, with their, you know, pitchforks and flaming torches. You know, you could almost feel that growing, you know, the sort of discontent and the want to go out and cause some damage for somebody, for some perceived moral slight that they feel they are in their rights to do something about. You know, incredible piece of music. Of course, from an almost nearly perfect album, which is Moving Pictures by Rush. So that's what I've got at number 7. Right. Okay, I've now got... I've gone wrong again. This seems to be the case. Right. Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I have only got 9 here. I've got 9 choices. So at the end, I'm going to have to pull one out of the ether, which I'm going to do through contacting the spirits of the dead. It's the only way I'm going to be able to do it. So at number 9, I really want to do, you know, represent metal. You got Black Sabbath, you've got Iron Maiden, you've got all those black metal bands, you know. You think of Master of Puppets and the cover of that and how frightening that is. Every metal band has gone down the horror route, right? So I thought, what am I going to get? Now, the first time I've ever heard that, before I even heard Black Sabbath, was when I was a very young new wave of British heavy metal fan, and I went out and bought Metal for Mothers. How many of you out there remember those 2 albums? Metal for Mothers Volume 1 and Metal for Mothers Volume 2? You know, that, and listening to Tommy Vance on the Friday Rock Show on a Friday night. You know, if you want to know about that scene, go and have a listen to the song Denim and Leather by Saxon, because it just is a beautiful tribute to us very young, short-haired, naive, new wave of British heavy metal fans that had emerged in the early 80s. And on the Metal for Mothers, by far my favourite tune on that album was Baphomet by Angel Witch. This is an incredible track. It starts off in some bizarre on time signature. When I went up the shop to buy all the makeup, you know, to buy the makeup and the spiders earlier on, I was trying to work it out. I think it's 11. It's either 11 or 12. I can't quite recall it. But it starts off with this sort of almost like prog metal sound. It's churning and it's dark. You've got all these sort of creepy atmospheric guitar sounds and squeals and honks at the beginning. This is really the sort of beginning of the next level of sort of thrash metal, black metal, dark metal. You know, this is where Venom are then going to come in and be so important in the development of that sound. You see, I'm really getting, as I'm talking about Angel Witch, I'm really getting really frightening in here with the lighting effect. I haven't diminished here. I'm still here with the lights. So yeah, that's what I've got at number 9. I wish I could tell you loads more about Angel Witch. I was a big fan of them in the early 1980s. They were one of those formative bands. I then got into Venom after that, and you know, I was away, you know, but I sort of went then backward. Towards sort of, you know, Black Sabbath, and then Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, yes, Genesis, and that was my routine. But to this day, I absolutely love it. It's the definitive metal track. This is so much. Modern metal is so neat and tidy, with some pretty boys with their Pro Tools putting all their bass drums perfectly in time. But what you hear with Angel Witch is three scary guys in a recording studio making that sound. If only we could go back to that with heavy metal, maybe that would save the day, but that's another video. Right, so I'm now at number 9, and I wanted to put something funky on here, and I went trawling through a whole bunch of sort of Parliament Funkadelic albums, trying to find something, and there's that sort of science fiction-y, you know, slightly horrific. You got the Brides of Dr. Funkenstein, and I nearly put that on. But then I thought, and this isn't really funk, is this soul? I don't know. Is it even blues? But I absolutely love this tune, and I'm going to put it on the list at number 9, and that's I Put a Spell on You by Screaming Jay Hawkins. Now, this song, ostensibly, if you listen to the lyrics, is just a song about love, basically. It's about, you know, casting a love spell on somebody. What Screaming Jay Hawkins does with his songs is he turns it into something extremely exotic, which has a sort of witch doctor aspect. You know, Screaming Jay Hawkins has such an incredible voice, such an incredible image as a performer, right? And I think he did this incredible definitive version of this tune. Of course, then along comes the incredible Nina Simone, who is a genius. And she does a version of it, which I think has become the definitive version, which she winds into this sort of, it's like a lament. It's so full of emotion. This is what Nina Simone did with so many cover versions. She managed to find this meaning in there, which I think for many people say, well, she found this alternative meaning. But actually, I think the most bizarre take on this is the version by Screaming Jay Hawkins, which I've got at number 9 on the list. And so nearly at the end of the video, I need a 10th one. Right, so I haven't got one. I'm going to have to pull one out of my mind now. This is where I go all abstract. So if we could just contact the dead, if we could just put our hands on the table and touch fingers and close our eyes and ask, is there anybody out there? If there is somebody out there, could you knock twice? Oh, there is. I think I've contacted somebody. We've got somebody. Are you a friend or foe? Are you a friend? Did I say 2 knocks for yes? I'm assuming 2 knocks for yes. Let's go with that. Oh, you're a friend. Are you a fan of jazz fusion? Why is that? Is it because you didn't like the way it just was a shallow display of virtuosity, which diminished the original talents of the people involved, and then just got subsumed into sort of a commercial chase to try and get hit records with cheap disco beats and shallow overdub soloing? Is that why you don't like the jazz fusion? Oh, that's good. Yes. So, are you a prog fan? Oh, we know where we are now. We know where we are. You're a prog fan. That's very good. So, what is your favourite prog band? Is it Genesis? Oh no, not a Genesis fan. Is it Yes? It's not a Yes fan. It's not a Yes fan. Right. Is it Emerson, Lake and Palmer? Oh my God, I've got a lot of bands. Ghost, you've got to realise I've got a lot of bands to get through. There's only, if we've contacted the dead and this is a spirit, there is only one band it can be. Are you a Van de Graaff Generator fan? Oh, I knew it. I knew it. Right, so which of the Van de Graaff Generator songs are you going to put in for your top 10, horrific soundtracks? Now, this is going to be really hard because I don't know much about Van de Graaff generator. You know, I did a little bit of research, and I've got to come up with a name. Any Van de Graaff generator song at this point would be great. So I'm not going to choose one. At number 10, right, I'm going to leave it empty. It's going to be a question mark, right? But I want, because I know there's a ton of Van de Graaff generator fans out there, and I know they're pretty horrific, and we can include Peter Ham and all that. So can you, in the comments below, put in the number 10 for me that I've missed off? And once I will decide which my favourite one is, I will announce it here and I will add it to the playlist, which is down below. Does that sound all right, Ghost? Does that sound like a good plan? Very good. Are you going to go away now? Really good. Go on then. Brilliant. So I've got to the end of my Halloween special. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm now going to try and wash my face because I've got to go and because this is makeup. You might have thought that that this was really horrific. I'm sure. I'm sure it is really horrific, right? So anyway, if you like this video, then please like. And if you want to see more stuff like this, you can subscribe. Whether you will see stuff like this again, I don't know. My channel seems to be getting sillier and sillier, and I like it. So, and if you want to support me, because obviously this all costs money, fake spiders, cobwebs, sound effects, makeup, it all costs money, you know. So if you want to support me, then you could become a Patreon, and don't forget to put your number 10 in there, because I've messed up here and I've only done 9. There's always a mistake on my channel. It's becoming a little bit of a thing now. So I'm going to try and do something frightening at the end now with this light. So I'm going to sort of come into the camera, right, like this. I'm going to bring the torch up to my face, right, causing all sorts of something. And then there we go. We'll see you on the next video.